Good morning, everyone. How you guys doing today? Good morning. Well, before I start my sermon today, I was told to share my testimony with everyone. So I will start with that. Like you mentioned, my name is Daniel. I originally come from Detroit, Michigan. So I'm far away from home, especially in Tijuana. It's even farther. But but for me, growing up, I always grew up in the church. Since I was 2, my mom brought me to church with my twin brother. We went to church ever since then, and I grew up, in the church with my mom. Unfortunately, my mom and my dad divorced when I was 2, so I grew up that way for a bit without my dad in my life. But I did see him every other weekend, so it wasn't like he was completely gone, but it still was hard. And then also when I was 6, my mom remarried to a guy, and unfortunately, he was not the best person to me. And just so that also another thing that just add on to that hurt. And growing up in school wasn't too great either because it was like around 3rd, 4th grade where the kids started to like section off into groups. Like here's the popular kids that everyone likes, and then here's the kids that are like in the middle, and then there's the kids that no one likes over there. And I was always thrown in that group. To this day, I don't know why I was thrown there, but I always was. And my twin brother was in the middle group, and unfortunately, instead of helping me, he would make fun of me with the rest of the kids. So that was hard on me as well, going through school that way. And getting on to middle school, it continued. We transferred schools, and there was a smaller school there, but still the same thing happened, the different groups and stuff like that. My brother decided to, join everyone else and making fun of me. And, he did a good job of that at home as well every day. So, I was used to it kind of, but still it hurt. And, during those times, in middle school, I just, I really felt alone. I felt that no one really loved me, that no one really cared about me, in school, facing that every single day. And also with, my mom at home where, she had problems with my stepdad, and just a lot of stress on her through things that were going on. We weren't like, the most well-off family ever. So we went through a lot of financial problems. And because of all that stress that my mom had, she always used to lash it out on me. And I don't blame her. It wasn't, I don't blame, it's not her fault. She unfortunately was also raised that way and went through a whole lot more than I did. So I don't blame my mom in that, but it still hurt. There's still moments that definitely hurt and affected me a lot. My brother, making fun of me and poking me and pinching me and hurting me every single day and telling me things to my face that, that really hurt, it didn't help either. Having little brothers that were annoying also added to everything. My stepsisters who didn't acknowledge me really ever growing up also hurt. My stepdad who didn't love me and did everything he could to make me feel horrible was, another thing I added on to it. And then my dad not being there also hurt a lot. Especially being 13, 14 years old, when you go through those moments where you really, especially as a guy, wanting my dad to be there, that father figure in my life that wasn't there. I didn't find it anywhere. And I always thought, if my dad really loved me, he never would have left. If my dad really cared about me, he wouldn't have did what he did. And so there was times in my life where I just didn't want to live anymore. There's 2 times in my life where, I came home from school and it was a time where I had like one friend that one friend also became mad at me and joined the other kids in making fun of me. And there was like a week in school where I just, I had no friends, I had no one to talk to me at all. And I was just alone. And I went home to my room and I just cried. And I said, God, you know what? I'm not going to do it, but what if I just ended it all? Because if I did that, then I wouldn't be a burden to anybody anymore. Because that's what I was. I was a burden to everybody. Because that's the reason why my mom had problems. She was mad. And, if I wasn't around, she wouldn't have anyone to yell at anymore. If, I wasn't around, my brother wouldn't have someone to pick on anymore, and he would be better. People at school as well, they wouldn't have anyone to pick on anymore either. And they'd be better off without me. My brothers, could be at peace more because I wasn't there to bother them to bother me. So things would be better there. And if I wasn't there, I wouldn't have to be a burden to my dad anymore that I only saw like once a year because he changed states. And, that definitely hurt my heart. And he wouldn't have to worry about me anymore because I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be better without me. And it was during those times where I started going to a church that before my friends from my old school were going to, and I was going there to their youth group. And it was there where there's people there. There's one guy in particular who I'm still in touch with this day, and I thank the Lord every day for him, that would just come up to me and ask me how I was doing, or say, hey, how's it going? Give me a high five or whatever, In those moments, I didn't realize it, but there was someone who actually cared. So I thought. Of course, my mom did care, my dad did care, and they did in the ways they could, but it wasn't enough for me in those moments, unfortunately. And you just going through school and stuff like that, and through those times, it was, at that church, it really helped me a whole lot. Because not only did that guy just, say hi to me every time I would go, but then later on, he would actually start to talk to me and see how it was doing. I got involved with the drama team and at my church, and he was the leader of that. So I talked to him even more. He had a small group that I went to where I talked to him even more. And I went to their summer camp from that church that completely changed me forever. And God put it on my heart. It didn't change. It was changing me there to not be ashamed of him, because I was always afraid to talk to people about Jesus. Cause I was like, that's not their problem. It's only mine. But like it says in the word that we should not be ashamed of the gospel. But there's the power of everyone who believes, like it says in Romans 1:16. And so I can't be ashamed. I can't hide that. If God's the best thing ever, then why am I hiding it? Like, I need to share that with people. And it was in that moment at 16 where God started working on my heart and changing things. But I still felt depressed. I still felt alone. I still felt that I wasn't worth anything, really. And I was trying to find that in the world. And when I was 18, my church, my youth group, every single year, they went on a missions trip. And I remember they always would come back and say, oh, it was so awesome. It was so great that they went on this mission trip. It was so much fun. They had fun with the free day that they had after doing, stuff for Jesus. And I thought it'd be amazing. Like 2 weeks with people from church, with friends from church, that I could just spend 2 weeks with them. Like, that'd be awesome to have friends for 2 weeks. That'd be great. And then also do stuff for Jesus too on the, it's a bonus there. It's great, And so I signed up for the trip. And it was, months before the trip, it was January of 2011. The trip was in June of that year. But we had the youth pastor, she always did like an interview process to make sure that everyone was going with the right heart. Because she didn't want people coming on the trip, they're just going because they want a free vacation or something like that, which wasn't free. But anyway, so I went in for my interview that day. That was my turn. I was going in. I had my reasons why I was going on this trip. And she had asked me, so why do you want to go on this trip? And I said, I want God to speak to me, which I never thought of ever. That never came to my mind. It was words that just came out of my mouth. I didn't know where they came from. I remember walking out of that interview and was like, what did I just say? Because I was like, I didn't think of that. I didn't never thought of that, but I want that. I always heard that people at church were saying, oh, God spoke to me, or God said this to me, or God showed me this. I'm like, well, God never showed me anything. God's never spoken to me, or I never heard something from God. But if God does that, I want that. I want that. And so we went on this trip 6 months later. And then during all this, I was in my last year of high school, and I was going to be a film director. That's what I was going to do. I had that planned out. I was going to be a film director and going to an advanced film college in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where I was going to go. And I was going to do that with my life. That was my passion. It's still part of me a little bit. But I was going to do that. I got signed up I filled out my application for this film academy. I got accepted. And I was so excited to go. But time was coming close to this mission trip, and just things weren't coming together for it. The money wasn't there. Things weren't happening. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, you know what, God, if this is what you want, then you'll do it, But so I go on this trip, and God did a miracle with me getting on that trip. It's a little bit longer story. I'll get to it another time if someone wants to hear it. But I got on this trip miraculously. God put all the money together that I didn't have, and I went on this trip, and it was there where God completely opened my eyes. Because before, I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. And I thought I had it all together, but it was here where God changed that. The first week we did a VBS, a Vacation Bible School, for some kids in really poor areas. We went to Dallas, Texas, by the way, sorry. We went to Dallas, Texas, and we were there in the very, very poor parts of Dallas, Texas, where apartment complexes without windows and just broken glass and garbage and places and stuff like that. We did work for these kids, and we did this Vacation Bible School there. And there while we were doing it, just, it was awesome. It was amazing. It was great. Like before, I always thought like, oh, kids are cute and everything, but 100 meters that way, stay over there, away from me, please. But it was there on this trip where God completely changed that, because it was there where I was, doing the songs with the kids and the lesson and the games and all that stuff that just everything just came naturally. It was like I've done it forever when I didn't ever. And not only that, but it was in those moments that I was, helping the kids and being there for them and all that stuff where I didn't feel worthless anymore. It was in those moments where I felt this peace in my heart that I never felt before, a joy that I never experienced my whole entire life. And And I realized because I was finally doing what God wanted me to do with my life. I was finally following him instead of myself. And I remember that I realized this when after we were done with the missions, the VBS, we were going on to our next project. We were going to do work at a senior citizens home. And we were there getting ready to do stuff for the day. We were waiting for the director of the senior citizens home to come over and tell us what we were going to do that day. And as we were waiting there, our youth pastor had told us that we would go to a water park that evening to cool off, because in Dallas that year it was like record highs, like, 45, 50 degrees. It was something really high. I can't remember. It was really, really hot. And so a lot of the girls on the trip were complaining it was really hot. They couldn't stand the heat because it was really bad. I didn't care. I was having time of my life. But they said we're going to go to a water park to cool down in the evening. Everyone was excited to go to this water park after we're done doing our service for that day. But I didn't want to go. I went up to the youth pastor and I said, can I give up my time at the water park to go just help those kids one more time? Like, I just want to go one more time to help them, just one more time. And she goes, yeah, maybe we can see. We can work that out maybe. We can see what happens there. And I was so happy. I was so thrilled to be able to go to help them one more time to, teach them one more thing or do one more game with them or something, And I remember that in that moment, the director got there and he came up to me and he said, hey, but how you doing today? And I said, I'm doing great. And how are you doing? And that was the first time in my life where I said I felt great and I actually meant it. I didn't have to lie anymore. I didn't have to hide behind a fake face and tell people I was okay when I really wasn't. I really was finally great in my life. And it was after that where I thought about it the whole trip, because there was some talk there where the missions group that we were with, the ministry, there's people who did like summer missions there with these apartment complexes and would go and do things with the kids every day. And I'm like, that would be awesome. If I could do that, that'd be awesome. Do it for a summer, maybe. That'd be great. And so I remember talking about with people on the trip. I talked about it with my good friend at the time. I said, do you think this is what I should do with my life? Because that's what I'm feeling, maybe. I don't know. And he looks at me in the most blunt way and says, dude, you'd be an idiot if you did not do this with your life. This is totally you. Everyone can tell this is what you were made for. Like, this is literally your thing. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, this is what you should do with your life, man, for real. And I thought about that the whole trip. And I remember the very last day, we were getting ready to go the next day, and everyone went to bed, and I couldn't sleep. And I had, to not bother anybody, I went in the bathroom, shouldn't have went on there because everyone was sleeping. And I just sat down in that bathroom. I said, God, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't want to go back to the way I was before. I don't want to go back to that. I can't. Like, I'm finally having this peace and joy in my life that I never experienced before. I don't want to lose that. And that whole trip, our youth pastors were telling us this one message that they wanted us to learn that's been stuck with me ever since. That your life isn't about you. It's not about you. And as moments I didn't really get it, but as the trip went on, they taught us that, it's not about living for yourself. It's about living what God has for you. And when you do that, that's when you feel the most greatest you can in your whole life. There's nothing better than that. And there's that moment I was finally realizing it. And I said, God, that's what I want. I don't want to live for me anymore. Because if living for me means being depressed every day, I don't want that. If living for me every day with suicidal thoughts, I don't want that. I want this peace and joy that only you can give me. And I finally have it. I don't want to lose it, God. But I'm in a thing right now, God, because I was going to film school. I was going to do that. And that's what I want to do with my life, I think. But at the same time, I feel that you're calling me to be a missionary for these kids, and I don't know what to do. And God, when I signed up for this trip, I said I wanted you to speak to me, and I haven't heard you yet. So God, I'm going to sit here, and I'm not going to get up until you tell me what it is that you want me to do. And I'm going to wait until you tell me. Because you speak to people, I want that. I'm going to sit here and wait. And so I did. I sat there and I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited for like ever. I don't know how long it was. For me, it felt like hours, but I think maybe a half hour, maybe, I don't know. But after just a moment, just sitting there in silence, complete silence. After a long while, I heard God tell me, I want you to be a missionary for these kids. And as soon as I heard that, I had this surreal peace in my heart that told me that's God. And I was like, all right, that's it. And so I did. I went home. I told my parents, I'm not going to film school. I'm going to be a missionary. My mom freaked out in the moment, but then afterwards she understood. I went to Dallas, Texas for a year, did an internship there with a missions group called Dallas Mental Dream Center. And it was there where God specifically called me to Mexico. And after my internship was done there, I went down to Mexico on a trip with some people. And I was there on that trip. We did a crusade in a soccer field, and God in that soccer field told me, this is where I want you to be. I said, okay. I went home, packed all my stuff up with $120 to my name, 2 duffel bags, and I went off to Mexico, and I've been there ever since. So that's my testimony of how I got there and my history of my life. But just hoping that if anyone here today is feeling worthless or feeling like I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, or feeling in those moments that I just can't anymore, God can. God can. Just encourage you guys today, if someone's feeling lost or doesn't know what to do, God has a plan. But we have to put ourselves aside for a second. Not for a second, forever, actually. And say, God, what is it you have for me? What do you want from me? Because God will provide everything you need. It's promised in His word. God will give you that joy and peace you need if you don't have that. God will give you that direction if you don't have that. God will give you anything you need if you don't have it, because God's our provider. He's our Father. He's our heavenly, the best Father in the whole world. The best Father than any other Father could ever be. So if you need that today, I hope that this testimony encourages you. That even in the most darkest situations, dark moments of your life, He's there. And if we truly look to Him for real, not just say, oh, I'll go to church on Sunday and see if God's here. No, I mean, it's a life thing. It's an everyday thing. If you truly look to God and you truly look to Him and ask Him, God, what is it you have for me? He'll show you. And give Him that time. Don't just be like, God, what do you have for me today? Oh, I'm here. Okay, no, give Him the time. As you talk with anybody else, that's how we talk with God. Give Him that time, He'll tell you. But yeah, that's my testimony.